Mike, what habits or routines can believers maintain or develop to cultivate a disciplined prayer life?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think the whole point of this series, right, that you guys are working on is the disciplines of the Christian life, the life of the believer. And so, yes, prayer is rooted in God's majestic attributes, and that is our motivation to want to communicate with Him. But also on a fundamental, practical, daily level, we do have to consider, how do we do this? What's the substance of our discipline in this area of our life? And so, I mean, at the risk of oversimplifying it, just do it. Just pray. You know this God. And if you don't know Him, read the Word to understand Him better, understand some of these attributes we've just talked about, and then realize that the natural response is to pray to Him, to want to communicate with Him. He's communicating to you through His Word, and now you naturally want to communicate with Him. So realize that a healthy prayer life is born out of a robust understanding of God Himself and the theology of Him that's revealed in the Word. So yeah, do you want a better prayer life? Read the Word more. Study theology more. Understand the intricacies and the majestic attributes of God Himself. So I think also it's helpful to remember that prayer is a habit. It should be a habit at least. And so to cultivate habits, we have to understand how our brains work and how our interests motivate even the daily activities that we do. So yeah, I think of a time of day is helpful to set aside for prayer. Not that prayer it should be limited to just a certain time of day, whether that's before you go to bed or right when you wake up. Those are two good options. Paul says that we should pray without ceasing, and so our whole life should be dominated by a thought life that is anchored in and rooted in praying to our Father. But it's helpful to set a time of day. I usually pair an intense time of prayer with my time of Bible reading. I think that's very helpful.
Now, when we talk about the discipline of prayer, that implies that it takes effort and we have to fight against something. What do we have to fight against? What are the hindrances to prayer?
Great question. I think right off the bat, laziness comes to mind. There are times, I must admit, when it is my slotted time in the morning to pray, and for whatever reason, I've decided that it would be better to sleep an extra few minutes or make coffee during that time or whatnot, or get to work early because I have so much to do that day. Those are all elements of laziness or departing from the discipline that I have committed myself to. So I think we got to fight that first and foremost. And we all have that in us.
Yep.
I think beside laziness, I think we also have to watch our hearts closely. You know, I think often people will commit sins and then allow those sins in their hearts, unconfessed sins, to fester in such a way that it becomes an impediment to this intimacy with the Lord, in that they are guilty of it and they feel that guilt. And, you know, whether it's conscious or not, they often will just pull away from a level of intimacy. And, you know, we do this on a relational level too, on a human level. If you've sinned against your wife and you have not made that right, what naturally happens? You tend to drift apart, don't you? And that's why immediate confession, immediate reconciliation should be one of our priorities. I think of 1 John 1:9, where he talks about aligning, confessing yourself with God's will. If you confess your sins, if you see your sin the same way that God sees your sin, He is faithful to forgive. And so there's another one, you know, laziness, avoid it. Sin, don't let it fester. And then ultimately, I think I like to motivate myself to pray from a positive perspective, less than a negative. You know, like, it's not just that I need to do it, it's that I have to, I want to. I can't live without it. That's the mindset I think we ought to cultivate.